Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 30. Okay, so I have to think a bit. Episode 30 of the Rebel Studio Facebook Live series. And my name is Krista. So if you've been a regular to our live stream, you would know that I do this every 2 weeks. And I bring on people who have interesting business insights and interesting knowledge to share with all of us. So today I'm very, very pleased because I am bringing on a leadership consultant and leadership coach, Tamara Hofman. Then she will come and tell us all about what she's doing. And she's going to teach us something really interesting today. So I myself am personally very excited to find out more. So without much further ado, let's bring her on. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Tara, where are you now?
Currently, now I am in Penang Islands, in my home.
Okay.
So that's where I am now.
Okay. And it looks pretty sunny over there.
Yes, it is. I drew the curtains. Yeah. It is very nice, and it's very
So one of the things that I usually start with is to get my guests to share a book or two or three.
Yes.
So what book do you have for us today?
I have, and I'm really sorry, but I have a book that is in Dutch, but I will explain it. So this is written by Benjamin Zander, who is let me put it here, who is a conductor, and he teaches at conservatorium, and his wife, who is a psychiatrist. And the book is called The Art of the Possible, which is a wonderful book about what if we as teachers give the A grade to our students. They have passed the year already at the start. And then see what happens to the students, to their results, to their the input that they can bring into their work, which is wonderful. Great examples.
Okay.
So I can really recommend that one.
And you like the book because
it has a completely different approach to education, to leadership, to how we as people relate to each other. So it's very close to what I do. So I am a coach, and one of the coach mindsets that we adopt is that we believe that people are inherently good, right? That there is innate potential in them, and that I see it as my job to just unleash all that potential and release the interferences that they're having. But the answer is already there. And the method that he has used is a wonderful way to allow for a lot of interferences, because a lot of interferences come from, am I good enough? Do other people find this good enough, right? Is my work worthy of an A or an A star? So that's all sorts of interferences that puts us away from what we want to focus on in terms of other resources. So what am I good at? What am I passionate about? What do I, if I work on, in his case, a piece of music, how can I put more of myself in that without needing to worry about the grades that I have? Because I know I already have that A grade, and it's such a profound shift in thinking and in being that I feel, and it's actually, it gives an example of what I try to achieve with my work.
Okay.
That's why I like
and
it
is
so much.
Benjamin Zander Dutch?
No, I think he's he teaches also, I think, at Harvard Business. So he lives and works in America. So the book is just Dutch because I'm Dutch. That's why.
Okay.
But you can look him up. He's on TED Talks, and I'm sure you can find this book as well there. So that's why I chose this book.
Thanks, Tamara. I have watched Benjamin Zander before this. I think one of his videos. I'm not too sure whether it was a TED Talk, but I found that he really he makes your eyes sparkle.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it. I do not know whether the word is. I mean, he has enthusiasm. That's for sure, and he has this really, really strong belief that people can do much better. But he really brings a sparkle to your eyes. And if
Yeah.
anyone is interested in that video, go and just Google Benjamin Zander and his video,
Yeah.
and you'll be like, wow,
Beautiful.
amazed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the rules in the book that he talks about is actually don't take yourself, let me look it up, don't take yourself too serious. That's rule number 6. And
Okay.
every time people go in a tantrum or whatever, remember rule number 6. Don't take yourself so
too
serious.
personal.
Yeah. Which I love, right? And I think that's also the sparkle that you feel. Yeah. Very nice.
Okay. So since my guest has brought a book to introduce, I'm going to bring on a book.
Yes.
So this book is One-on-One with Andy Grove, who was, I think, president of Intel. So this book is really old, as you can see from the cover picture. I mean, it really looks like a dated book, right? So I checked it out and I say, oh, this book was published in 1987. That's a long time ago, right?
That's a long time ago.
Really long. I was in school then. I don't think I was in school then. So what he does is, and this is to me, I found this book on my bookshelf, and sometimes I just dig around my bookshelf and say, okay, what books haven't I read, right? So this just came out, and then I was thinking, okay, let me just give it a go. And I found it very interesting because it's basically like a FAQ, a frequently asked questions. So he has a question and answer. So he used to write a column in a newspaper. So people would send in questions, or even managers would ask him questions, and he will put his answers. And sometimes his answers will get really horrible feedback from readers because they say, you should have answered that way. I think that's a very bad way to answer, because he was talking about management, how you manage employees and how you can become a more effective manager, which I felt is very apt for today, because even though we're talking about business and decisions and becoming leaders, I think becoming leaders, that's why I like today's title, because it's the leader in you, which is leader in us, in ourselves. Yes. So we choose to lead, no matter where we are. So whether we're a manager or a business owner or an employee, we have to lead ourselves first.
Yeah.
So this book is really a classic. So it's really old, but I think it's good to read some old books, because sometimes knowledge doesn't go out of style.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Nice.
So now that we've got that out of the picture, let's talk about today, right? So today we want to talk about leadership, but I think leadership itself is such a huge topic. Like, oh my God, so scary, right?
Yes. Krista, are you there?
Hello.
There you are. I thought I lost you.
So this is actually real, right? So we're doing this, and then we drop off the call and we come back again. So I think that's the interesting part of Facebook Live. Yeah, we live.
Exactly.
So whoever's watching, I mean, if we see us drop off, we come back in, it's because of internet issues. So even we struggle internet issues in Penang. So I was just saying that before we get started, let's get to know you a little bit more. So we know where you come from and what you do. So we know you're from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And how do you get to Penang? It's kind of like a long journey from there.
It's a long journey. Well, the interesting thing, Krista, I think what might be nice to share is that when I was 21, I think, I actually lived in Kuala Lumpur for half a year, because I have an education of civil engineering, and I did my internship at KLCC. So, the KLCC shopping mall and the nice dome at the center and the elevator that takes you up. Yeah. That was my responsibility. So that was my first, when we talk about leadership, it was my first experience as a leader, because I had a team of 8 guys, and we were building that that dome on the KLCC shopping mall, which was great. So it was my first experience with Malaysia. But it's a long story to talk all the way through my resume, I think. But as a civil engineer, I had grown, I learned about myself, and I noticed that working with technology only wasn't enough for me. It didn't give me satisfaction. So I very early on wanted to work with people, lots of things. And over the course of my career, I left the technology more and more and really focused on people. And when I worked at Philips, which is a multinational in the Netherlands, that's where I first really became a leader myself. So I became a director, had a big team to work with, and did lots of change programs there, which was wonderful. And the organization gave me lots of opportunities. They saw potential in me. They gave me leadership programs. I sometimes say I was peeled like an onion, and then they built me up again, sort of. And I love that. I really enjoyed that a lot. And so when we had the opportunity to move to Asia, both my husband and me were working in Philips. That's where we had to think about it for 1 second, sort of, because we always said we want to explore the world. We want to give our children the opportunity to see other things, to open their minds, not just the Netherlands, right? So we left for Asia because my husband got a job here and I quit my job. I was done with corporate life, back-to-back meetings, speaking to my husband through internal email. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I decided to do what I really enjoyed, which was working with people, developing people. Leadership became such an important topic in my life at that point. So I decided to become more specialized in it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So that's now 10 years ago. So we're in Asia for 10 years already. So we moved from Singapore to Shanghai, where I lived for more than 5 years, 5.5 years, and now Penang. So, and that brings in itself, if you talk about leadership, part of leadership is leading yourself, right? That's the first step. And that whole journey has taught me a lot about how I lead myself. And it helped me to grow in that sense as well. So I became an entrepreneur, I became a partner in a business, right? So it was all new things that I had never done, which was great. It was, and different cultures, different experience, really nice.
Okay. For those who are watching and for those who are joining us today, if you have any questions, not necessarily about leadership, because like I said, leadership, sometimes it just stumps people, right? But questions as you hear Tamara speak, put them in the comments below. And she's going to share some really interesting things with us today. I think one of it is called the Drama Triangle. Yeah, yes. I think I wrote it down. A Drama Triangle, right? So I'm really interested to get into the Drama Triangle. But before that, what was that time for you in China when you were there?
Well, China is of course was a place for us that was very foreign. It was very far away from what I am used to. And some of the things that I wanted to talk about today is values, for instance. What are your values as a leader? But also, and it starts with you as a person, right? So what we learned in China is, because we were in a situation that's so different from what we have been grown up in, is that I really got to understand my values, what I really, in my core, find really important. And that through values, you can also connect, that you can overcome differences with other people, right? So that is one that I learned in China. I also learned that the open-mindedness is so important, that there is so much of our perception being managed by external factors. So that's important, again, about leading yourself, is that you yourself find your facts and figures and get it straight. And when you are in a relationship, right, that you are able to manage yourself. So that's also what we want to talk about today, right? When I was, I had to reinvent myself sort of when I was working with Chinese leaders, for instance, who had such a different point of view in terms of leadership. And I had to stop almost with my own, this is the truth, or this is right, or this is, this is not right. But really, really sit next to them and see it from their point of view, and from there help them raise their awareness about leadership and leadership in their context, but also in other contexts, right? So I very often worked in cross-cultural situations, which is super interesting, right? So yeah. So lots of things to talk about over in China. It was really nice, but it's an experience that we will, I'm really grateful for. I think it was really wonderful.
Okay. So now we've come to what we want to talk about today, which is talking about how can we become better, more effective, I would say, not better, more effective at our work. And because usually I talk about businesses and business owners, entrepreneurs, but I believe that, like I said, today's topic is also very good for people who are not even in business, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that when we want to talk about making better, we start with making better decisions. I think that's what we are talking about, like choices and decisions, right?
Yes.
So for you, when you mentioned just now that you even had to make a choice to do certain things in life, but how do we know that that decision is going to be good for us? I think that is what we grapple with a lot, right? In our lives, in our families. How do we know that a specific decision that we make right now, without knowing like what's going to be like tomorrow, a week from now, a year from now? So how do you see that? And because you have made those decisions, how has that panned out for you?
Yeah, and that's a big question, especially now when the whole world is upside down and a lot of things are insecure, right? So I don't think we can say that a decision is the right one forever, right? A decision is the right one at this moment. And what I feel is really important for business owners, entrepreneurs, people, is making decisions based on values, on your values. Those are often the decisions that keep you most grounded, most close to yourself, that are often the ones that lead you to an area in your life that you are happy with, right? So, and what I mean with that is when I talk about values, it's very much about your core values, right? So your guiding principles, what it is that you find most important in life. And that sounds very vague, but for instance, for my core values is freedom of choice, and learning is super important for me. So when I make decisions, for instance, in China, I became managing partner of an organization, a leadership consultancy firm, and I had a Chinese partner, and we loved working together. We were doing nice things together, and sometimes we were enjoying it so much we forget time. We were hugely in flow, right? It was wonderful. But sometimes it just didn't work. It was really, really hard. And we started to acknowledge and see that the moments that it didn't work was always when we had to talk about business, when we needed to think about growth of the business, plans, customers, right? Strategies, all that stuff. And we looked into, we spoke very frankly to each other, and we both said, you know what, this is not what we enjoy. This is not where we get our energy from. And we both checked into our values. So what do you find important in work? What is so, and for me, freedom of choice and learning. And I wasn't learning, and I didn't feel I had freedom of choice because I had to work in that framework of that organization, and I couldn't do what I enjoyed, right? I was very restricted. So I didn't feel that I had that freedom to do what I wanted to do. And I was not learning. And I was only learning when I was working with people on content, and I was working with the multicultural leaders. And right, that's where my energy was flowing. So that's where we made the choice to stop. That evening, actually, after our conversation, I called the owner and the founder of the organization and said, I want to step out as managing partner. I want to still be involved if that's possible, but I cannot be managing partner anymore because it's a choice that is not very much connected to my values. And it's the best decision I ever made because the organization wanted to keep us. We were able to work in a different role that they created for us. And from that moment onwards, we were much more engaged in our work. We could do what we loved, and the work increased, right? And the quality increased. Everything went much better. So that is what I mean when you know your values and you realize that, and you need to make a choice. You could actually, normally we make a choice, what are the pros and what are the cons? We could also say, what are my values? Option A, option B. Option A, how much of the values does this tick? And option B, how much of my values does this tick? And then you can see, right, this option B might not be the one that is very closely linked to your values. So that's another way of making choices.
So it's not like just about writing the pros and cons on a piece of paper.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, when you write pros and cons, they are most probably informed by your values, but it's not that explicit. And when you have your values more explicit and even in an order, you can start to make much more profound choices, right? So it becomes, and sometimes it's in the moment, but sometimes it's also bigger choices that are really helpful to be made by values. I think that's so. And again, right or wrong, I wouldn't use those words, but I would use the words important decisions, or it's a decision that's closer to yourself. So it will make you more. How can it? I'm sorry, I'm lost for the words, but it's more connected to you. So whatever the outcome of your decision is, you will be better and happier for it. I think that's
so then this other question pops up. How do I know my values? How do I decide which are my values? Because we could have many values, right?
Yes,
like freedom
absolutely.
of choice is a value, authenticity is a value, but how do I decide? Because I think a part of my work with other business owners is this. Every time we talk about what do they want or how they want to position themselves out there, I say it comes back to also your values too, right? Because that drives what your positioning is.
Exactly.
But a lot of them really do not know what their values are.
No, and that's part of my work. And for all the people out there who are listening, there are methods. There are many methods. So you have value cards. You have. So I have developed sort of a questionnaire that you can go through, and this will be available. It's a PDF. It's one page, and it's an exercise that you can do. It takes around 2 hours, and it really is something that you need time for, right? But you go through the exercise, and what it does, it actually forces you to choose. So you write down all your values, all the things that you think are important to you. Like you said, Krista, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. And but in the exercise asks you choose. So you need to select the ones that are really truly important to you, and then you need to order them. What is the top number one, number two, number three? And when you do that, it becomes already, that exercise in itself is already really valuable. Just going through that and asking yourself those questions helps. And there is a long list of values included. So if you don't know what words to give to it, you can choose from the value list. Sometimes, so I have one value that I still don't have the word for. I know exactly what it means and how it feels and how important it is to me. But if you ask me what it is in one word,
what is it? What is it?
So
what
for
is
me, things need to be rounded. So it needs to make sense. I think that's what it's closest. So, when we have a conversation and we start to understand you, for instance, Krista, then I really want to, what is really important for me is that we can create a story or a solution, or I don't know, even in presentations, it needs to fit all together. And again, I don't have the word for it, but it's the closest that I come.
Is it completeness?
It's something like completeness, and it needs to fit nicely into each other. So I need to see the connections. It needs to be connected. It needs to be a whole. I think that's something. That's why I always come back to that circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's not a circle for you,
I'm
What?
not satisfied. I'm itchy. I want to understand it. I want to make it round. It comes when I make a presentation and it doesn't fit, right? I work on until it sits. But also when I work with coach, when in my work as coach, if I feel that people don't, when the story is not round, or when the story that they tell themselves it doesn't fit, we dig deeper until we get it.
That sounds more Chinese than you think.
Oh, I don't know if that's true.
because Chinese like things to be round. They don't like all this
True.
poking angles out.
Yeah.
They want it to be complete and whole.
Yeah.
So it has to be like in harmony. I mean, I would say this in harmony, right? Rather than just like there's a missing part or there's a missing bit here that you just, I know, I understand what you're trying to say. It's not easy to let it go when you know that you can make it a little more rounded.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So there's also values that you may not be able to pinpoint exactly what it is as a word.
Yes.
But you can feel
that's fine. So you can draw it, you can whatever. And if that's something that is in your top 5 values, it's perfectly fine. So as long as you personally know what it means to you, then that's it. So whenever you need to make choices, you know what that value means. And you can say, okay, option A, is that actually connected to that value or not? And or will it completely disrupt what I find important?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, since we are talking about values, I wanted to pull this up too, right? Email for the values exercise. The one that we were talking about, the one that you list down all your values and order the top 3? Is it the top 3 or top 5?
5.
Top five values. So just email Tamara at this Gmail, and then she'll let you have that PDF, and then you can work on finding your values. I want to find my values too, because I kind of guess, I kind of know what my values are, but sometimes you may not, I mean, it's just guess, right? Guesswork. So I just feel that, okay, so if you're watching this on the replay or you're watching this now and you're like so intrigued by what the heck is a values exercise, go and email her and get it from her, and then do it. It takes 2 hours. Is it 2 hours? 2 hours. Wow, that's a long time.
It is, and that's I think why it's so important to think, because you talked about choices, right? And we have a question as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Ahila says, are these values fixed or do they change as your life experiences change?
Yeah.
So Ahila, values might change and shift a bit. So it is interesting to do it perhaps every 2 years or every 5 years. But most probably they will be more or less the same. And especially your number 1 value, your guiding principle would be the same, right? So it's not something that changes very easily. But it's a wonderful exercise to just put into your, you could do it at the end of each year, or so just to check in. And it's also really nice to recap your choices, for instance. So what have I done this year? Where is my life at this moment? What choices did I make? Where's my business going? How am I relating to other people? Is that still in line with I find important? Something changed? A big life event might shift it a little bit up and down, or the order might change, right? When we become parents, for instance, certain values might shift. But it's not that you will have completely different ones. I think it's more that the order might change, or the level of importance of certain values.
Yeah. So thanks, Ahila, for that question. Yeah, I feel that, this is also a good one, a good question to ask. Do they change as your life experience changes? Yeah. So, get that exercise from Tamara and do it yearly if possible. Okay. So I think values, because values help us make better decisions.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Is there anything else that besides values? I know values is also something really big, like leadership.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So what else? So in our decisions, and that's where you triggered me when you said, "Ooh, 2 hours. That's a long time." So very often when we are business owners, when we are living our lives, right, there's very often little time. So you see that a lot of people are action oriented. And I feel that when we invest a little bit more time in our being side, so in my work, I talk about being and doing. And a lot of people have a tendency to move towards the action, to the doing. And the being part is as important. So a lot of time that I spend with leaders is in that hour or 1.5 hours that we have, talk about their values, but also they're developing their emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is another element that I think when we are making decisions, we need to have worked on our emotional intelligence. So if we know ourselves better, do we make a decision on, are we aware of why we are making a decision? Is it an emotional based decision, or is it a decision based on facts and based on our values, something that we find really important, right? But what I see over time is that leaders, people take decisions on the spot, and they have not really looked at it, and they are being led by their emotions more than their logic. A lot of time people think that they are logical human beings, but a lot of our decisions, I think it's around 50%, are made unconscious, right? So if you read the book of Mr. Karpman, Thinking Fast and Slow, so many things come from our emotions. And if our emotions play such a big part in our lives, in our decisions, we need to start to understand them better. And in order to do that, sometimes we need to stand still and not act, but to think about, okay, how do I actually feel? How do I respond to this situation? What is driving me? Is it an emotion, or is it a good emotion? Is it helpful? Is it a positive choice that I'm making? Or do I make it from a defense mechanism, or right? Or am I attacking? The fight or flight that comes in when our emotions take over. And I think that is another next to values. I think that is a really important element when we want to make decisions, when we want to manage ourselves in relationships, right? Knowing yourself, knowing your emotions, knowing how you respond to certain situations, what your stress triggers are, helps you to make more sustainable, I think, decisions, and to enter into relationships that are more effective. Okay. I say a lot. I'm sorry. That might be,
but it's good. But it's good because I think that why I said 2 hours is also because these days I think everyone is in a rush, like you said, right? Everyone just wants to get going, and do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's good to pause and reflect sometimes.
Yes.
And I think that's where your exercise will come in once a year, or at least should be once a year, right? Where we see where our values are. Have they evolved? Have they changed, or what has made that happen, and give us that reset button? Can I say it's a reset button in a way to understand ourselves? I also believe that a lot of leadership is really about knowing ourselves, right? Inside.
It is, yeah. So, and the values are really a longer terms, that's something that is the foundation, if you want to say it. And what I talk about when I talk about emotional intelligence is very much, and that's also where we go a little bit into the drama triangle that you find so interesting, Krista, is very much in the moment. So, not always when things are happening in our day-to-day lives, we not always tune into our values and step out. So we also need to become more aware of what's happening in our day-to-day activities and the relationship that we're having, and being able to manage ourselves then and there in that moment is also really important. And again, that is balancing that being and doing in a day, for instance.
Yeah. So I like this, balancing the being and doing.
Yes, that's it.
I'm going to write that down. Okay. So now let's get to that interesting slide you show, the drama. The drama. Let's get to the drama. So if you're watching this, we're going to get to the drama now.
Yes. Okay. I will up the slide, and then I will introduce it while people look at it. Is that okay?
Yeah. Sure.
Hold on. Let me see where it is. Here it is. Can you see it?
Okay. Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So the Drama Triangle is designed by Mr. Karpman, and it talks about the connection between responsibility and power within relationships. And so when we are leading ourselves, we are leading businesses, etc., we come into situations with other people the whole day, right? Every day. And it is really important, if we want to start to get to know ourselves, is how do we typically respond to certain situations in a day, right? So we talked about choices. Perhaps I made a choice that wasn't really a good one. So I might make it. So for instance, if I would, I will explain this with a personal example, right? So we made the choice to move to Singapore, which is great. I was all for it. Perfect choice. But then when I arrived in Singapore, I was seen as the wife of. I wasn't having my own working identity anymore. I was in a place where I was a little bit lost. And I started to feel not really great. And the relationship with my husband really deteriorated. I felt a victim at that point. I felt that it was a little bit done to me. I thought, it's not fair. I thought we decided, that we would do this together, but my husband has his work and his life, and now I'm here sitting with my children at home, which is not a bad thing, but I had ambition, and so I was very much a victim at that point, right? And sometimes I moved into the persecutor. I was blaming my husband. I was saying, "Hey, you're not doing this right. You need to pay more attention to me, right? You're off doing your work and traveling and leaving me here all alone." So I became
and having fun and having fun.
Yeah, exactly. And what am I doing? I don't have fun. So I became the victim again. So very often in relationship, you see these three different roles. You see it also in work, right? Very often a manager is the persecutor, is the bully. The manager is not is not listening to us. And some people in the organization might be victims, right? They might feel that they have no control. They are blaming the process. They are blaming a manager. They are blaming IT because the
internet doesn't work.
working. Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of blame games going on, right? And then we have the rescuers. Manager is the bully. Yes, we recognize that, right? And then we have, of course, the rescuers. And in typical organizations, sometimes that's HR. Sometimes they are the persecutors, right? I'm sure you can get the picture. But the rescuer is the person who is always trying to fix things, who is always. So when I was in Singapore, talking about me being the victim, there were people say, "Oh, how can I help? What can I do for you? Here, Tamara, here's a little bit more that you can do, and call me if you need anything," right? So there is the rescuer always ready to help the victim. Yeah, and to make sure that the persecutor is confirmed as persecutor. So we don't challenge that as a rescuer, right? Because if there is no persecutor, we cannot rescue. So we want to keep that all happening. So this is a drama that exists often. You might recognize this in many different situations, right?
In ourselves, especially, right?
Ourselves, and that's where I want to get to, right? So in my example, I made that decision with my eyes wide open, right? I wanted to get to that, to Singapore. I want to move to Asia. I wanted all that. But I wasn't ready and prepared. I wasn't taking the responsibility, to own my choice and to deal with that new situation. I prefer to be a victim and bully my husband versus I took all these relationships in my own hand, and I took responsibility for my choice. And that's where the interesting bit lies. So if we are making choices, dealing with the consequences is then an important one. And do we step into our drama triangle, or do we take ownership and responsibility? And are we able to say, hey, I don't want to be a victim, I don't want to be a bully, or I don't want to be the rescuer. I actually want to move towards the I am okay triangle. So that is the opposite of what the drama triangle says. So a victim becomes vulnerable. So the conversation that I had to have with my husband was, hey, listen, I feel very insecure. I don't know if it is that easy to start a business here or to get my career going. And this is what I need from you, for instance. That's a completely different conversation to have than either, accusing him of having lots of fun, because it came from my own discomfort, right? And when I can share my discomfort or my insecurity or what I need, my needs, for instance, then I take ownership. I am responsible for my own choices. And then the relationship becomes very different. Similar for the rescuer. Rescuer is very typically someone who is always busy with others, but sometimes it's really helpful to be busy with ourselves. What am I running away from? What have I not in order? How do I accept no from someone, right? Because if a victim says no to the rescuer, they become a prosecutor sometimes, right? Because, hey, I'm trying here to help you and you don't want my help, right? Then you become,
then you become angry, right? You become angry that somebody just shoved your help back at you.
Exactly, yeah. So as a rescuer, again, I am okay, you're okay, we're in the okay triangle. So if you don't need my help, I am okay with that because I am enough as I am. I don't need to rescue other people to feel good about myself, right? So there is again a shift. And also for the persecutor, it's very important to be clear on boundaries, right? Very often a persecutor steps over those boundaries. And I think the manager is duly recognizes that, right? We all feel that they cross so many boundaries. So if we have clear boundaries in those relationships, it becomes much easier, much more healthy to work together with all sorts of people and also to deal with the choices that we've made, right? And to own them.
So in this drama triangle, so we could be any of these roles.
Yeah, you can swap very easily, very quickly, but most of the time you have a preferred role that you move into. So interesting, if we have audience, might be interesting to ask yourself, which one of these ones do you recognize for yourself? What is the role that you quite often tend to go into, right?
Yeah. So those watching, you just let us know which one are you. I know it's gonna be hard admitting this in a very public sphere, but yeah, just for the fun of it. I mean, just off the top of your mind, which do you think that which role you're always playing, right?
Yes.
Persecutor, rescuer, victim. Yeah.
I will just make sure that everyone understands it.
Who
says all of it?
All of it.
And sometimes we run around in the circle, right? Yeah. But I think what is really important to know is that everyone has this, right? It is so unconsciously you can fall into one of these roles. It's really about developing your awareness, understanding when it happens, why it happens, and what you can do to manage yourself in that moment when you notice, oh, I think I'm going into victim role. Let me, swap. That is how you can make those choices in the moment.
Yeah, so she says swapping roles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But having this drama triangle also lets people see, okay, right now I'm in the victim mode. Okay, I shouldn't be in a victim mode. So we have a role to call it, because otherwise we always have this feeling that we're always resentful of certain things.
Exactly.
Or feeling like we're bullied. Like, this is so unfair, right? Like, this shouldn't be happening to me.
Those are the words. Yep.
Yeah. Or a rescuer. The rescuer will say, hey, I want to help you.
Yeah. Do you want some more? I have some more. You want a little bit more of what I know or what I can do, right? So that's always, again, crossing certain boundaries. Yeah. So
knowing all this actually gives us a time to step back, right? What we're saying is it gives us this time to step back and say, okay, which role am I in right now?
Yes. And then understand what triggered this, and how do I feel about this? And that's where we need to move towards, increasing our emotional intelligence. What is my true need here? What do I need to take responsibility of? What do I, how do I and it talks about power, right? And I know your podcast is about empowerment. How am I empowered at the moment? And what can I do to empower myself again, or to empower the other, right? Because a rescuer is not empowering a victim in that sense.
Yeah.
So it's about control also, taking back control over you and your behavior, being able to manage that. That's what it does, right?
Okay. So if we meet someone, okay. So this is about us, right? So right now I say, okay, I know that, okay, at certain points in time, I become either a persecutor or a victim or rescuer. But if I meet someone who is in any of these roles, how do I talk to that person? Or do I say, hey, you're in a drama triangle, get out of it? Is that, how do you, how do you kind of like tell that person, right? Like, you're in that mode.
Well, I think, first of all, until you really understand it, it might be easier to keep it to yourself first, right? Instead of, oh, now you're a victim. I know that you're a victim, because then it becomes like almost like the persecutor, right?
You're trying to push it down the person's throat, right?
You push it down someone else's throat. Yeah. So instead of looking at the other, look at yourself. What does this person make me feel, and what role does this person make me want to go in, right? So very often, that is where you can start. So you can control your own behavior, not the behavior of others, right? So start with yourself. So respond from an adult or an I am okay perspective. So if you are noticing someone who is being a victim and your tendency is to rescue, which is happening a lot, right? Then make sure that you approach them as an adult. Approach them as someone who is able to solve their own problem. You can offer your help, but you also accept the no. Or if they become clingy and needy to you, you can set the boundaries, right? This is what I can do for you, but that's it. For the rest, right, it is up to you, because there's a lot of people who can suck your energy. The victims can really say, yeah, but I don't think that's a great idea. No, but I tried everything. Also, there is a point that you can say, okay, great. So it sounds like all doesn't work. I don't know how to help you further. Let me put a boundary here, and let me know when you need something from me, right? So that is where you take ownership again of, you don't want to feed someone into it, because they will take more and more. That is one of the games that people play, right? Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's really about our own boundaries. So being able to say, okay, for me, this is the boundary here. This is enough. And checking in with yourself. I am okay. And still the other person is okay. You're just not playing the drama anymore. So you step out by saying, this is my boundary.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's really helpful. Because sometimes in business as well as in life, you will come across people who will want your help or want you to keep helping them.
Yep.
And it's never ending.
Exactly. Yeah.
And in that way also, sometimes I think of it as the client relationship sometimes.
Yeah.
Can also be like that, right? Because they keep coming back to you and say, hey, I need this.
Yeah.
So by setting the boundaries, we are able to technically tell them that I can help you, but this is what I can help you with.
Yes, exactly.
But beyond that, perhaps you kind of have to go and find other sources of help.
Or we need to recontract. I can help you with other bits, but that was not part of, our initial agreement. Let's talk about something of a new agreement, right? So really creating those, we call that in coaching terms, contracting. So contracting is not a legal contract only. You also have psychological contracts. So what is the relationship that we are having? What do we agree on? How do we work together? And I see that we have a comment that says the manager or owner is always responsible for the work. So the staff will support and then support each other. And that is exactly contract that I'm talking about. So who is responsible or who is accountable, right? And how do we agree to work together in order that everyone feels safe, so that we don't enter into that drama, but that everyone is aware of what it is that everyone needs to do. And there, of course, there can be support as long as it's healthy, as long as it is not done out of fear, out of the fear of being pushed out if you don't offer support, right? And as long as no one is taking advantage of it. So that is why psychological contracts are so important. Just sitting down on a table, talking about how do we want to work together? How do we all need to feel okay with each other? And where are the boundaries that we are putting in? When you do that, relationships become much more healthier.
But it starts with a conversation.
It starts with a conversation, yeah. And in that conversation, make sure that you talk about yourself. This is what I find important. This is my boundary. This is where I can help and where I cannot. Or this is what I need, right? This is what I need and what I don't need. Something like that. And if you're a manager or an owner, as a leader, that's a wonderful conversation to have with your team. So you can facilitate that conversation, right? When you, but it also requires for you to look inside yourself and reflect on your own behavior, and be comfortable enough to discuss that with your team.
Yeah. So I think that's also where we come back to values, right?
Absolutely.
Because if we understand what
round.
we value, yeah, make it round. Yes, Tamara. now I understand what you're trying. Make it round. Yes, make it round. So earlier we talked about values. We started with values, which that was the whole conversation started from values. So now we come back to values, right? So it's a complete circle.
Yes.
So if we understand our values, we understand what we stand for, what we honor, what we believe in, then it's easier to have a conversation without being very arbitrary about decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, like, I'm going to make this decision because I'm feeling like this today. I'm going to make this decision because today it feels like I should make this decision. So it's not about arbitrary choices or decisions. It's about values-based decisions.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so now I understand where you're coming from. Yes, we start with values, and then we're coming back to values again. So thank you, Kiu Hong, for that comment. So for those of you who are watching, if you have any comments, please put them in, because we're coming to the top of the hour and we will be, ending soon. But one of the things that I want to quickly go through for those of you who just joined us is that I think we talked about values, which is a very, very key ingredient in making decisions, because without that, our decisions can go all over the place. And it could be also emotionally driven decisions, because where we fall into that triangle, we can make decisions based on whether we're a victim or the rescuer or the persecutor, right? And then we also talked about balancing the being and doing. So there's so much of doing that we forget about the being. And I think that is a really great reminder to all of us, especially with business owners. I think, we're always on the go. Or we always think that there's not enough time. I always hear this from my friends. There's not enough time. I need to do so much. There's so much to be done. Yeah. And so, that being is actually good for us, kind of like a pause button to reflect, right? And then what I heard from you was also we control our own behavior. So it's not about, yes, I'm going to go and tell people you're a bully. You're a bully now. Or you're playing the role of a bully, right? So it's about us knowing ourselves first, and then trying to, if there's anything that doesn't go our way, we need to set those boundaries for ourselves, as well as tell the other person what we want, right?
Yes.
Can you say what we want or what we prefer?
There's a difference between want and need. So I want a lot, but I need. When you talk about needs, it's different. Okay. It's a level different. So I would recommend to think about what you need in that moment. What you need. Okay. I need more connection, or I need us to work differently together, and it sounds, I think, in communication, it sounds more inviting.
Yeah. And also psychological contracts, which I thought
Yeah.
Was a really good way of putting it. Not the legal contract, but a psychological contract, whereby we talk about what we need, right?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
with
Exactly.
people around us, with even our clients and our family members.
Yeah.
So I think those are the very important things that will help us make better decisions.
Yes.
And not decisions that just because today I'm feeling like this, I'm going to make this decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Tamara, we're down to 5 minutes. So what is that one key takeaway? I mean, I've summarized a lot of stuff, but what's that one thing that if you haven't said it yet and you want to say it and you want to leave our audience watching now or in the replay, what is it that you want them to understand about decision making and being more effective in our lives?
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing every time in my work it comes up, right? It's that time to take for yourself. It's stepping out of the rat race. If possible, one moment in a day, really start to get to know yourself. The better you know yourself, the better you can manage your own emotions, the more profound you will make decisions that are good for you, that are helping you and are more sustainable, I think. So for me, it's the balance of being and doing and developing your emotional intelligence. So that's the collective word for it, right? So emotional intelligence starts with yourself, knowing your own emotions, being able to manage them, not fall victim of that whole drama triangle. And from there, you can start to manage your relationships much better. So that's for me the most important one. That's often where people struggle.
So where can people find you if they want to connect with you or they want to learn more about your work and your coaching and your consulting?
So I'm on LinkedIn, right? So they can find me on LinkedIn, Tamara Hofman. Then I come up. We've shared my email address for the values exercise.
Let me share it again so that, yes, this one.
Yeah. So reach out if you would like to have the values exercise. I will send it to you, Krista. So you can also already do it. And
yes, I will do it. I love doing all these exercises. I think a lot of it is we kind of guess at our values, like I said, but we may not know exactly what those values are.
Yeah. And that's why that exercise is so great, because you have to choose, and you have to choose your number one even. And that's what we never do, right? It's very nice. And we have a comment. Don't be too calculated when working. Love the psychological contract theory. I like that your staff is accommodating. Very nice. Yeah, so reach out when there's questions on Drama Triangle or the values or your choices. Happy to support.
Okay, I like this. Thanks, Kiel Hong. To be too calculative and working. But yeah, I think I learned something new today, which is psychological contracts. And that helps us think about when we want to work with potential clients, people that we want to do work with and do work for. I think it's good to have this psychological contracts, which allows us even, I think we make better. Also, we become better when we lay it out in a way. We can tell people, this is what I am, right?
Exactly.
Because I think a lot of times in Asia, I think this also pertains to Asia, is that a lot of times there's a lot of things that people don't say.
Yes. Yeah.
And because of not saying it or not wanting to say it, because I don't know, there are many reasons, right? I don't want to feel embarrassed, don't want to feel that, I'm just too forthright with you.
Yeah.
Things start spiraling.
And we assume things, right? We assume that the other might, I don't know, think I'm stupid or think I don't do it well. That's why we come back to all the way to the beginning, the A, right? So that's so important from this book as well, right? So and a lot of that's all the interferences that we're having. And when we are putting that aside or on the table and talk about it, that's where our performance goes up. And the relationships become more effective.
Okay. So email Tamara for the values exercise. connect with her. She is also the co-chair of Lean in Penang. Would you like to say something about Lean in Penang? Since we went all around, we have to complete the circle, Tamara.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, for me, it was already round. I'm already happy, Krista. Yeah. So I think very short, empowerment. We talked a lot about empowering ourselves, right? And empowering others. That is also what Lean In does. So empowering women at the workplace, but also women who want to go back into workplace. How do we make sure that we empower ourselves and that we achieve the ambitions that we set for ourselves? So that is what Lean In does. And again, through mentoring, circles, support groups, taking away those interferences and making sure that we all reach our full potential.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Tamara. Because when I wanted to get you onto my live stream, I was thinking that here's a person who's always been supporting other people. And I felt that she's always she's supporting other people. But at the same time, I was very keen to hear her story. And I wanted to bring her on to share her expertise. And I know you have many, many years of experience and you have done a lot of things, but that's the hardest thing, right? Like we want to support other people at the same time. I want people to tell their stories. So I wanted to bring you on for that reason, and also of course to share, because I also realized that there's so many things I didn't know about that. So I like everything that you shared today. I think it's very complete. we have that circle. We really do have that circle. And thank you all for watching. If you want to know more about her, email her. Go and check out Lean in Penang on Facebook, as well as if you want to find out more about Reebok Studio, just like our page, follow us, because we have more videos like that and live streams coming up too. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you again. Bye.
Thank you so much, Krista.
Bye.
Bye.